right, on to the next point. Let's talk realism. So, realistically, there are some things that set your professional ballparks apart from a lot of the other ballparks do, and just kind of differentiates a real life ballpark from like a fantasy ballpark. So, just kind of some of the things. Some of those things are first in terms of your stands. Real ballparks, your stands are generally focused around home plate, the baselines, and then the corner outfield, especially for the upper deck. You're not going to get upper decks in the outfield usually, unless it's just like a kind of like that, or maybe out to like here. But they're not going to extend here. They're not going to be behind center field, especially. Sometimes, I mean, they did back in the old days, back when you had the cookie cutter ballparks, but they don't build them that way anymore. So usually the bulk of your stands is behind home plate and the base lines, and then you'll have some outfield stands in the corners, and then maybe some behind the center field wall. But normally your outfield wall, or beyond the outfield wall, normally that is reserved for your recreational areas, like your kids' fun parks. It's your concourse that you're gonna have all your stuff on, your amenities, and different places to hang out, different views for the ballpark. So that's kind of why, like here, I have my little kids area. You got some restaurants, statue for the entrance, and then just like the row of restaurants, a team store, stuff like that. So it's just kind of another thing to keep in mind. You also usually have an area where you can get underneath the stadium and put like your batting cage, stuff like that, for the actual players and to get it onto the field for batting practice. All right, another thing that I'll add when it comes to placing stands realistically is when it comes to your stands on the lower level, they're all going to be pretty much snug against the wall. So you're not going to have, see some ballparks that are created where they have your wall and then your stands just start like out here. Most ballparks do not do that, and generally if they do, it's because they were designed with the wall against them, and then later on, a couple years down the road, like they had to bring the walls in for some reason, and then they couldn't bring the stands in any further because the people would be underneath the stands. So you'll see that in places like San Diego. Like San Diego has some spots with the wall that's detached from the stands, and that's because they brought the wall in a couple years after they built the ballpark. So in general, you want your stands to be snug up against the wall. In general, you want your fans to be as close to the action as possible. Some older ballparks might have them back further. Like I think Dodger Stadium has some spots where it's not connected, but you're talking about ballparks that were built in like the 60s and whatnot. So in general, new ballparks always put the stands as close to the walls as possible. You'll see that pretty much in every modern ballpark today. So just something to keep in mind with that. The last thing I'll say in terms of your seating is Major League ballparks generally have around 30,000 to, your highest ones have 60,000 seats, but I mean that's your major markets like New York and LA, the Dodgers. But outside of that, like even Anaheim dips down. Most of your ballparks are in that 33 to like 43,000 range. So you kind of want to keep your ballparks there, especially in your low markets. Like even Tampa's new ballpark that was proposed, I think that one was 32,000 or something like that. So any of your lower markets are going to be around that in terms of seating capacity. They're not going to go. They're not going to go higher. So that's just something to keep in mind, and that's usually why they're all the seating is booked back here. So you can build more stuff in the back in beyond the outfield in those ballparks. So more things to attract people to the ballpark. Another thing that you're going to want to put